Hi, everybody. So this has been a challenge that I have been presented with on multiple fronts from multiple people, and this largely comes probably as a result of the folks who came over after the Prophecy Roundtable I participated in a few weeks ago. And the group that I went on the channel of are not of the opinion that the Old Covenant has been put away. And so I'm going to assume that their subscribers are not aware of that either. I don't know if the folks that are coming over and talking about this now are from there, or if they are just folks who are unaware that the Old Covenant has been fulfilled and that the New Covenant has replaced it, and that it replaced it on the cross. So I'm going to take you through this sequence of steps, how we arrive at this, because I, for the life of me, cannot understand why people do not know that we are under the New Covenant, that we have been under the New Covenant since the cross, and that the Old Covenant was permanently shut up and fulfilled by the death of Jesus Christ on the cross. It totally escapes me why people don't know this. This is foundational doctrine. So we're going to go through this. I'm not being rude or condescending. I, for the life of me, cannot understand why anyone would teach such obvious foolishness. And it is obvious foolishness. Matthew 5 through 7, where these verses that they are giving me come from, is Jesus' first public ministry, the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount was forward-looking to kingdom presentation number 1. Jesus' entire ministry, from his baptism on Tishri 10 in Matthew 3 to the triumphal entry in Matthew 21, was always forward-looking to the first earthly kingdom presentation. Therefore, every single thing from Matthew 3, from his baptism through behold, thy king cometh unto thee, lowly and meek, riding the colt, the foal of a donkey, was forward-looking to the time when Israel would have to accept or reject her king coming to bring the kingdom. They rejected him. 4 days later, he went to the cross, paid for the sins under the Old Testament, Old Covenant, shut it up, and instituted the new, and offered new covenant to everyone, where by contrast, the Old Covenant had been for Israel alone. That's why I say in Matthew 10, when he's giving his disciples the commission to go and preach to Israel, he says, don't go the way of the Samaritans and the way of the Gentiles, don't go there either. Go only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel and tell them the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Because Israel had to reject the offering of the kingdom first before it could then, the covenant under which that kingdom presentation was offered could be shut up. A new covenant could replace it, and then kingdom could be offered to everyone. So there's a sequence of events here, and truly, I think people just are not recognizing the boundaries of the ministry, who it was to, when it ended, what the purpose of the ministry was, and what the purpose of the cross was. So they say, think not I am come to destroy, or the verse that I'm presented with, Matthew 5, 17 and 18. Jesus says, think not I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Well, yes, he fulfilled the law. And I think that there is a failure to recognize what activity represented the fulfilling of the law. So we're going to go through that. He says, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. Okay? The passing of the heavens and the earth is related to kingdom. It's related to kingdom. There were 2 prophecies forward-looking to 2 different kingdom presentations that included the passing away of the heavens and the earth. But the passing of the heavens and the earth is synonymous with kingdom. We are told about this in Matthew 5, forward-looking to Matthew 21, first earthly kingdom presentation number 1. They rejected it. One of the 4 things that occurred in the outset, as a result of them doing that, was the delay of the kingdom to a second coming, which is then prophesied in Matthew 24, which includes, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away, but of that day and hour knoweth no man. There are 2 prophecies about the passing of the heavens and the earth, both respected to kingdom. Matthew 5, forward-looking to Matthew 21. Matthew 24, forward-looking to Revelation 19. And yes, the heavens and the earth will pass at the second coming that is prophesied in 2 Peter 3 and Isaiah 65. There are 2 remakings of the heavens and the earth, one for kingdom and one for eternity. The one for eternity is in Revelation 21. So this was always forward-looking to kingdom presentation number 1, Matthew 21. That was the unto the Messiah the Prince. That was preaching the acceptable year of the Lord. That was preaching the kingdom of heaven is at hand. The whole purpose for his ministry was for people to recognize him on that day. And if they had, heaven and earth would have passed. But they didn't. So he took the offering of the kingdom off the table, delayed it to his second coming, cursed the fig tree, cast blindness, prophesied 70 AD, and prophesied the 70th week, all in the interim. When people talk about the law not being fulfilled, there is a failure to recognize, I think, what that entails, what that means. I think it's a blanket statement that people make without really understanding what it is they're saying. Jesus himself clarified what the purpose of the law was. And this was something that it was the third of three temptations that he experienced. There was one by the Pharisees, one by the Sadducees, and then came the legal expert in Matthew 22. And one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him and saying, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. The second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and all the prophets. So what we are to understand of the law was that it was based on love, loving God and loving neighbor. So we look at this and we say, okay, what's the fulfillment of the law? Well, Jesus was God. Jesus was God. So he had the first and greatest commandment down pat because obviously he loved the Lord with all his heart, soul, and mind. Jesus was God. Jesus is God. The second is like unto it, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. And what does Paul say in Galatians 5:14? For all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. When people question about whether the law is fulfilled, they are truly failing to understand what the underlying function of the law was. It was to bring people to God, specifically to lead them to Christ. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And the second is like unto it, love neighbor as self. And then Jesus said, Greater love hath no man than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends. This is like A plus B plus C equals D. This is a very simple sequence of events to follow. People get stuck at this Matthew 5:17 and they think that the fulfillment of the law relates to like 10 commandments. Where this came up that made me want to just put this in a video and address it was I got a question that said, well, let me bring that up on my phone. When I was explaining what it means, all the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, and then the John 15 verse where Jesus says, Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. He said, assuming this is true, we wouldn't observe the 10 commandments? Question mark. Jesus quotes the OT many times, and I said, Jesus' entire ministry was under the old covenant, so of course he followed the law. He wouldn't have been the perfect, sinless Son of God if he didn't follow the commandments. This is one of the great mistakes that people make, and they say, well, Jesus did it, so that means we're supposed to as well. Jesus did it because it was purposeful for him to demonstrate complete obedience and complete love. He was the only man who has ever lived that has been able to be perfectly sinless, perfectly obedient, and perfectly loving. He had a reason to be the way that he was, to demonstrate that he's the only one capable, that God in the flesh was the only one capable of being perfect. So to try to emulate what he did and think that you're supposed to because he did is entirely missing the point of why he did it to begin with, was to prove a point. You can't. Because you can't, he did. So that you don't have to, because you can't, because he could and he did. You are supposed to rest in the finished work of Christ. Finished is fulfilled. I think there is a failure to understand when Jesus said it is finished, that he was specifically referring to the fulfillment of the law, but we'll get to that. So I said, yes, Jesus' ministry was under the old covenant. Of course he followed the law. The whole point of his ministry was to demonstrate only God can be sinless. So we must look to God for salvation. Jesus is God. I said the 10 commandments were merely a representative sample of the total 613 commandments in the law. If you're going to focus on the law, don't limit it. This is another thing that people do too, is they focus on the 10 commandments and they say, well, aren't we supposed to keep the 10 commandments? Like, I'm going to sit here and tell you, oh, it's okay to go murder someone or steal or lie all the time. No, that's missing the point. The 10 Commandments are a representative sample to show you that 100% of the commandments boil down into one of two camps, loving God or loving neighbor. So if you are to pull them up, the first is to, let's look at this. Exodus 20. Let's just look at these. And you tell me as we go down this list what bucket these would boil down into. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Is that loving God or loving neighbor? Or that'd be loving God, right? That's not the beginning. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Well, clearly that's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. Yeah, don't worship any other God than God. That's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. That's to love the Lord your God because that's a remembrance of his creative week that he created on 6 days and rested on the seventh. And then it's honor thy father and thy mother. Don't kill, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't lie, don't covet. So that's all love neighbor as self. 100% of the 10 Commandments show you the truth of what Jesus' statement is. It's reflective of the truth of Jesus' statement in Matthew 22 that all of the commandments boil down into loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and loving neighbor as self. The 10 Commandments are not the end-all be-all of anything. And if you think that there are only 10 commandments to follow and you're doing it right, you're doing it wrong because there are 613 laws in the Old Covenant, in the Mosaic Law. There's not 10. There's 613. And they are viewed as one single entity. So if you were to break one, you have broken the whole. This is truly people speaking without understanding what they're speaking about. We are all guilty of breaking the law. I would challenge a single one of you to even tell me what all 613 are. I don't know. I have no clue. I probably couldn't even name 20. So how would you even be able to keep it if you don't even know what they are? This is the entire reason that Jesus came. You can't do it. Don't try to do it. Rest in the finished work of Christ. The finished work of Christ was the fulfillment of the law. When Jesus laid his life down, probably went too far. Right here, John 19:30. Therefore, when Jesus had received the vinegar, he said, "It is finished." He bowed his head and gave up the ghost. It is finished is the Greek word tetelestai. What does it mean? To complete, to finish, to fulfill, to accomplish. When Jesus said, "It is finished," he was talking specifically about the transgressions against God's law. He paid for them, and then he permanently shut it up because he laid his life down in payment for the transgressions, for the sins of man against God, which was the fulfillment of the law. All the law is fulfilled in one word, even in this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Greater love hath no man than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends. The death of Jesus Christ on the cross in substitutionary atonement for the sin of mankind was the fulfillment of the law. With his death and shed blood on the cross, Jesus shut up permanently the old covenant. And he instituted the new, whereby resting in the finished work of Christ on the cross affords you access to kingdom citizenship. Belief on the Lord Jesus Christ, and you will be saved. I hope that this has clarified some things for some people who are clearly unclear on this subject. Please recognize that the Old Testament, Old Covenant law has been fulfilled for nearly 2,000 years. Jesus Christ himself fulfilled it by being the only man, because he was God in the flesh, to be able to be perfectly obedient, perfectly sinless, and therefore substitutionary. You are to do nothing other than believe in his finished work, rest in his finished work, and stop trying to do this all on your own. You can't, you never could, you'll never be able to. That is legitimately the whole reason Jesus came.